Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on January 30th, 2022 at approximately 7:15 p.m. PST. Well, I've been looking at a number of things in the last few days here, not the least of which is essentially the unsung heroes. And I got thinking about it. And when we talk about first responders needing recognition, and about the people doing jobs that are completely undervalued, I think the biggest one, the most underrated and extremely necessary first responder job in existence is that of the one of parenting. Now, there's a lot of views on what parenting is, but the one thing that seems to be consistent across all nations, across every place in existence, well, I shouldn't say that, with people that actually, there's two types. There's three types of parents. Okay. There's those that try so hard to protect their kids that they put boundaries up that are literally, are bottlenecking things. They throttle everything. You have to have a rule and a reaction for everything. Okay, there's that type. Okay, and those ones that have so many rules in place, quite often the rules get extreme, but when we're looking at rules, where the big problem is, parents in that category seem to take a look at things and go, do what I say, not what I do. Because they'll tell the kid something and go out and do exactly what they told the kid not to do. Now, much as I agree there are limits where age is concerned, we have to realize that where the age is not an actual problem, but a treatment behavior, such as the very old concept, kids are meant to be seen and not heard. Okay, children learn by experience. Now, you can try and overburden them with different rules and different guidelines, and you can set the standards so high as to make them virtually unattainable. Now, what that does to the children, regardless of the nationality, regardless of the background, is it causes kids to feel inferior, unsupported, absolutely strangleheld. Okay, now you do have that choice. You can follow that path. And if you happen to have grown up in a family unit where that happened to you, it's understandable why you're still looking at it that way. Now there's that rule. Then you've got the group of parents that basically do their best to treat their kids as though they're best friends. Where you strive to insert yourself into their life. You try and give them a lot of leeway because you don't want to. You're going the exact opposite direction and trying to give them enough room to make their own mistakes that they learn, because you keep making you parents like that tend to make excuses for the kids. They did that because they were trying to do such and such. Excuses don't work well. Okay, yet that is what society has turned out. It's a staggering number of people, children and adults alike at this point, that have been taught that if we point the finger elsewhere, then we don't have to deal with it. The sad reality is, whether or not you blame somebody else, you still have to deal with your own actions. Okay, then you've got the parents that go the third direction, where they do absolutely nothing to control the kids. Okay, they're kids. They'll figure it out on their own. I'm not putting boundaries up. Now, we can go that route. The problem with it is, in a lot of ways, that's how nature goes. Okay, they get the kid up and running. As soon as the kid can walk, they let him go. Many of these children die. Okay, sea turtles are an obvious example. The second the sea turtles hatch, they make a break for the open sea. Okay, but The number of kids that are lost in that kind of environment is extreme. Now, I came back to this lifetime for one simple reason. I came back to pass on the message that people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. But it is up to each and every one of us to figure out how to do that. And I absolutely encourage you to do things, to talk to people that have done it successfully. Now, in my case, I can tell you, I have no doubt my parents actually fought at some point, but I do not recall my parents ever fighting at all. Okay, and they since spent 60 years under one roof. Now, I could go into that whole thing. I'm not going to. Suffice it to say, they are both gone now. But, my parents used to say one thing to me when I was a kid. They'd do something, and bear in mind, I was just a little guy. So my parents I'd do something wrong and I'd start to cry. Not when I got hurt, but when I did something wrong. And my parents used to go, stop the tears, because, they were fake in their eyes. Stop the tears or I'll give you something to cry for. Now, it always struck me as being a little odd, because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm in tears, Mom and Dad. I've got a reason. And I swore I would never do that. Okay, I would never do that for my own kids. Well, I never did. I turned around and modified it just a little. I modified that saying, and what I did to my kids when they were doing the same thing, they do something, they burst into tears, and you knew it was fake. And I'd look at them and go, knock off the tears, or I'll give you something to cry for, that I feel is to cry for. Now, the reason for that was because I logicked that they had a reason to cry. They were crying. I didn't have to agree with it. I didn't have to understand it. Okay. But when we're looking at parenting, okay, the biggest responsibility you have is protecting your children, but giving them the tools to become self-driven, self-supportive, to help them become functioning members of society. Now, when the other factions that you're told are supposed to take care of your kids and supposed to guide them, when they fail, it falls back to you. Bottom line, the parent is the one that is absolutely responsible for getting the child prepared for life. Okay, now I'm the first one to admit I dropped the ball big time. Okay, I really did. But I remember I had one client years ago that phoned me up. He was having troubles with his marriage. And he asked me a question. He asked me what was wrong. I said, okay, who's your wife? What's your wife's first name? What's her birth date? What does she do for a living? And he looks at me and goes, she doesn't do anything. She just stays at home and raises my 3 boys. Now, his boys were aged 6 to 10. Okay. And I sat there and looked at him, and my first thought was simple. I said, Trader Jobs. And he goes, what do you mean Trader Jobs? She can't do my job. I said, sir, you're a landscaper. You get along really well with your boss. Okay, your wife is young enough. She's fit enough. Okay, talk to your boss. Get him to let her do your job. You still get paid. You're still the one earning the paycheck. But you stay home and take care of the kids. Okay, you handle everything going on at home. Okay, and let her go to work. Right, now do understand when I told him that, I did not say, like with these so-called reality shows, have the parents stay home and give them all sorts of tasks that they've got to do. That's not reality. Okay, so he went and talked to his boss and asked his boss to explain the problem, because his boss already knew he was having troubles. and asked if he could let his wife come to work and do his job instead him for the week. Well, the boss was all for it because, well, quite frankly, the boss liked him. So they traded off. The guy stayed home. The wife went and did the job. Now, there are times when that doesn't work. If you've got a job like a scientist or a doctor, if your wife is not trained that way, she cannot take your job. But in this case, it worked like a charm. So he took the job for a week. He gets back on the horn with me at the end of the week, and he looks, and this is the only guy in roughly 80,000 clients that I've had that actually pulled this off. He literally went and traded jobs, and he gave me a call at the end of the week, and he goes, "Never again will I tell my wife she is not working, or will I mention to anybody, or let anybody mention about their spouses. Never again will I say that they don't work." He goes, "I'm going back to work next week at landscaping. She can have the home. She can deal with the home life. That is way too much work for me." Okay. With that said, if you're having troubles with your home life and you're doing a job that your wife can do, okay, and talk to your boss, see if you can trade jobs, and let your wife go to work and she does everything that you do. You do everything to take care of the home. Okay. Do not change anything. Don't set up any extra measures. Just let the jobs go on as usual. I am absolutely certain you will find that this works like a charm to bring you guys both on and back onto a stable page. Parenting is so badly undervalued, and most of you, the term raising children applies way more readily than you might think. I had a client years ago. Okay, I kid you not, he'd never raised a kid. But he got to be 103 years old and fathered a child. Now, he phoned me up. He never raised a kid. He had no idea what he was doing with it. Okay, so we talked about it, got it worked out, and got him up and running. Now, I'm not perfect. As I said, I've dropped the ball myself. And I can give you a whole list of things. Doctors dropped the ball and didn't do what they needed to help my kid. The educational system has certainly done nothing for him. Okay. Now, these are just on my end. Okay. I should have picked up the ball on both cases. I should have stepped in right at the beginning and insisted that things be done differently. The reality is I did not. That I have to live with. Unfortunately, the side effect of that is my son has to live with it as well. With a lot of work on his part, a lot of persistent guidance on my part at this point, I am absolutely certain we can get him turned around. It will be later in life when he gets things organized. He should already be almost to the point of being able to step out on his own in a couple of years. He should just about be there. He is nowhere close. Now, that's not his fault. It's my fault. Okay. And the first rule of parenting is you must be willing to acknowledge your own shortfalls. Okay. Now, when you're looking at parenting, this is extremely undervalued. Okay. I find it appalling that the government is willing to pay strangers to look after your kid, as in daycare subsidy. Okay, so that you can go to work. And they are not willing to pay that same subsidy to stay-at-home parents that desire to raise their own kids. To me, this is a massive, massive oversight. Okay, and I'm pretty certain that those of you that are stay-at-home moms or are single-parent moms that have to have daycare, I am absolutely certain in most cases that you would rather be staying at home raising your own kids. Okay. But this is why I say we have to look at the reality that working together, we can make this a better world for most people. Okay, it's absolutely imperative that we start looking at this. Okay, take a look at the parents, and especially, this applies to those of you that were raised by single parents or by working parents where you were left in daycare or left with a babysitter. Okay, it really is imperative you look at this, and I strongly urge you to thank your actual parents for doing what they could. You may have had a real rough time of it. Okay, unfortunately, many parents that end up in this situation, okay, go through some pretty horrendous things themselves. This does not excuse them from the responsibility. Okay, and I've seen cases where marriages do fail. I was lucky. My parents never had a divorce. I didn't pull out that way. So, of course, when I turned to my parents and said, "How do I deal with this?" Mom and Dad just looked at me and went, "We really don't know. We never had to deal with this ourselves," which was true. I had one older brother that did deal with it. Okay. I had one older brother that did actually get divorced. Actually, in all fairness, I had two. But because of my own insecurities and what have you, I didn't talk to them. But remember, if you're running into snags that you do not understand, or that you're having trouble coping with, or having trouble doing so you can become better at doing something, talk to somebody that has done it successfully. Now, when we're looking at parenting, parents are first responders, they are medics, politicians, they are peacemakers, they are law enforcement. Sometimes if you're in a complicated life, they may be military. Okay. They are your public defenders, you name it. Some of you have ended up becoming dentists as well, or you've had to become veterinarians. All of these umbrellas, okay, all of these professions, as a parent, you become. Okay. And this is why I say it is extremely undervalued. It is time we really look at parents and go, those are the people doing the hardest job on the planet. And of course, I did forget to mention this issue of parents are the primary teachers. They are the ones that have to teach the kids before the school teachers have a prayer of doing anything. Okay. This is why I say you are extremely undervalued and extremely underpaid. Parenting is, yes, it's a life calling. Usually. Sometimes there are parents that end up with children that, and of course, this is going to open up a can of worms, that end up with children that they did not honestly desire. Now, I'm not referring to ones that had logical thinking and their hormones got away from them. I'm referring to the unfortunate people that classify as rape victims. For me personally, I'm extremely freedom of choice. Okay, but with that said, rape victims are absolutely the one case where there should be no discussion, in my opinion, as to whether an abortion is a good idea. Ultimately, in my opinion, it's got to be the woman's choice. Okay, but if a child is born of violence, okay, you can bet this is going to be a rough world for the kid, because the parent is not going to be able to bond with them as well as they'd like in most cases. Okay, we have to look at the reality of just how difficult parenting can be. You want to do the best for your kid, you desire them to have the best life possible. But many parents overlook the idea that in order for that to happen, you have to equip the child. You've got to find a way to spark a curiosity in them, to spark a drive. Okay. Now, I grew up in a home where all of us had an extraordinary drive and a real curiosity streak. Okay. A very big drive. And this is something we have to look at as parents. as parents that don't have the luxury of having a child with an incredible drive, if you don't have one or you don't know how to spark it, okay, then it's up to you to find somebody. It's not up to the kid. I mean, that'd be great. Ultimately, they're the ones going to have to do the work. But it's up to you, the parent, to find a way to motivate them. Now, I'm still trying to find a way to get my own son to try new things because, quite frankly, the society has failed him completely, in my opinion. Okay, so I'm still looking for ways to make that happen, and it's a trial and error thing. And especially when you think I should have picked this up ages ago. Okay, I mean, politely, simply put, with going into details, my son at this point is 16 years old. Now, I should have found a way to motivate him before that. But as the saying goes, better late than never. I've still got time to do it, as long as I don't up and die on him permanently. And rest assured, from my standpoint, dying is just a way of life. You get used to it. The neat part about it is, as a parent, yes, there's a lot of struggles, there's a lot of trial and tribulation, but there is a staggering amount of joy. Okay, and this is where people end up overlooking it quite regularly. But from your standpoint, it is absolutely imperative that you start looking at the parents around you. These are the real workers at the back of everything. These are the people, and more often than not, it's women that are doing the single parent raising thing. Not always. I'm a single parent. Okay. Fortunately, I get along with my ex, but I'm still a single parent. Okay. And needless to say, I'm not female. If I am, you know, somebody really pulled a mess on the hormone side, right? Because I mean, can you picture being a female looking like me? I mean, that could be just frightening. I mean, I find it frightening anyway, but as parents, we have an absolute responsibility to motivate our kids, find a way to get them interested in something constructive, something that can be used to be a benefit, a bonus to society, a real productive member. At the very, very least, regardless of their physical impediments or physical challenges or mental challenges for that matter. Do your best to it is your responsibility as parents, big responsibility, to motivate that child, to turn them to guide them to becoming a self-driven, self-motivated, productive member of society instead of becoming a burden. Okay, now there are many of you, and many parents run into the problem. The stress got too much, so they turn to alcohol or they turn to drugs or they turn to violence and crime and this sort of thing. The parents do. Well, what this does is it teaches the kid that's the way to get ahead. Okay, now I only follow 3 karmic laws. Okay, only 3. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Okay, now if you follow those, if you look in yourself, and this is why I was talking about the healing taking place here first. You have to look at your own shortfalls first. Okay, until you do that and absolutely acknowledge them. Oh, I forgot the other issue. Parents are also the first line of education where it comes to finance. Even if you're struggling with finance, it is imperative you show your kids, regardless of their age, you show that you share with them the stresses you're going through on finances. I did it right from the day that I had kids. And I tell you, my parents, they would tell me the same thing most of your parents probably did. Do not discuss finances with the kids. I'll tell you, it was the best thing I could have done because I raised 2 kids that when I said that we didn't have the money, I didn't get the flack from them. but I really want this. Okay, I remember going through Canadian Tire, which is a shop up here in Canada. Okay, as you can well imagine, Tire it has a lot of auto stuff to it, but it's so much more than that. But I was going through Canadian Tire, right, and it just so happened there was was a Canadian, I think it was Canadian Tire, might have been Staples, but we were walking by this thing, and there was this great big huge TV. Okay, and my son at the time looked at me and he goes, "Dad, when we have the money, can we get one of those?" And I looked at him and I said, "We'll see what we can do." I did not make him a promise. Okay, I didn't have the money for it. Right. Well, there was another parent there. And when I told him that, the other parent jumped on me and goes, "You can't talk to your kid like that." I looked at the guy and I says, "What do you mean? Like, what did I do? You can't let your son develop false dreams." I says, "Sir," he asked if when we could afford it, if we could buy it. He did not say, "Can we get it now?" He said, "When we can afford it." Now, where is the harm in him having a dream of going, "When I can afford it, can we get one of these?" Right? I said, I'm not going to have him grow up fearing dreaming. This gives him something to dream for. He's not putting extra pressure. Okay. Well, the guy ended up wandering around. It was another 6 or 7 years, maybe a little longer, before I finally got a big TV. Because that was when I managed to figure out how to put the money aside and get one. But he never bothered me. He never argued the fact that we had a small TV the entirety of his childhood. Because we kept working towards it. We did eventually get one. Okay. And we actually got it before he moved out. Unfortunately, it was only about a year or two before he moved out. But it is imperative you let your children dream. Absolutely get them to think. Get them to look to the future. This is your responsibility. If you do not know how to do this, okay, talk to somebody who's done it successfully. Okay, this is a profession, this is a calling that is so underrated as to be absolutely appalling in my eyes. Okay, now granted, this is just my take on it. You've got your take. Okay, but think of it this way. Do you not, as a parent, desire your kids to be happy, to be healthy, and to be successful? Okay. Or if you're not a parent, do you not hope that the children you're watching come up, watching be raised, do you not hope that they become healthy, happy, and productive individuals? Or are you hoping they become a burden on society? Would you rather they grow up becoming self-centered bully opportunistic, criminals? I mean, the choice is yours. We can let society collapse. Lord knows mankind has done this multiple times. But right now, we are at a position where it is time that we work together to change the direction this is going. Now, I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.